am so pleased tonight to introduce the first of our top guest speakers for the evening, our candidate, our future U.S. Senator from the state of South Dakota, Brian Bengs.
Well, everybody, I hope you're having fun tonight. It's a great night, isn't it? Woo! Yeah, so my name is Brian Bengs. I am the Democratic nominee for United States Senate here in South Dakota. I tend to pace a little bit. I've been trained to do this, so I'm going to wander around, and I may wander down and talk to you individually. But I need to tell you about myself because many of you don't know who I am or don't know my background, so it's only fair that you learn a little bit more about me. As I said, my name is Brian Bengs. I am from a small town, and it had about 600 people in it when I was growing up. Now it doesn't have that many. It has 400. It is slowly fading away like far too many towns across the Midwest, across the United States. And there's a reason for that, but we'll get into that later. Now, I was in the last graduating class from my high school before it consolidated. 17 of us, and then the school ceased to exist on its own. I was in a working class union family. Woo! My father worked as a machinist for decades. And I have the experience of growing up, knowing about the uncertainty of a struggle with making ends meet on a hourly wage. So that is part of my identity. A small town is part of my identity. I've taken it with me everywhere. When I was finishing up high school, the family didn't have enough money to send me to college, so it wasn't really affordable. And instead, I enlisted in the United States Navy. A week after I graduated from high school, I left for the Navy. I was 17. I actually turned 18 in basic training, but fortunately I was able to keep that quiet because anybody who's been in basic training knows that is not something you want the group to be aware of. So I did my time in the Navy, and I left a better person. I was better in so many ways than when I went in. But more importantly, it changed my life in the sense that I had the GI Bill that allowed me to go to college without mortgaging my future, like far too many people have to do today. So after college, I went directly to law school. I went to college at Iowa State University and then law school at the University of Iowa. When I was finishing up law school, I was starting to think, okay, I need to find a job now. What am I going to do? And I was looking around at county prosecutor jobs, and they did not pay anywhere near enough, considering the fact that I had law school loans now. So I looked back at the military and decided to join the Air Force. So I joined the Air Force JAG Corps for thinking 4 years, and then I'll get out and start a civilian career. 4 years actually turned into 19 years. And 9/11 happened on my initial commitment. So that was a big decision in sticking around because I was in the right place. I felt an obligation to do something. I wanted to be involved in the fight to defend our country. And I was. But the Air Force gave me the opportunity to do so many different things that I never imagined I would have the chance to do. So I've been a court-martial prosecutor. I've been a court-martial defense counsel. I've done federal fiscal and contract law. I've done federal environmental law. I've been a federal ethics advisor. And I also had the opportunity, the Air Force, the Department of Defense is very pro-education. I am a product of the Department of Defense through and through. I have a master's degree that the Air Force funded for me through Louisiana Tech University. I took night classes when I was working at Headquarters 8th Air Force. The Air Force selected me to go to George Washington University for an advanced degree in international law and then follow on teaching that subject and the law of armed conflict at the Air Force Academy. I was able to go teach operational law and rules of engagement, law of war, at the NATO school in Germany. And I taught to 80 different partner countries, to include a bit of time at the National Defense University in Ukraine, where I taught some topics, NATO topics, to them. So I've been around in the military. I've been around the world, across the United States, stationed in Germany, Japan, spent some time in Kuwait, Qatar, a little bit of time in a tent in Korea, but won't go into that. What I learned is that I know how the government works. I also know how the government doesn't work. So I've got some insight that you don't just pick up, because I've spent so many years in the system. Now, when it came time to retire, I retired as a lieutenant colonel in 2016. And I said that I'd been teaching a little bit, and I had the teaching bug, and I wanted to teach. So I saw that Northern State University was advertising for a criminal justice professor. Put in an application thinking, well, I'll give this a shot. And they called me, came up to interview, and they hired me a few days later. So my wife and I selected Aberdeen as the hometown for our children. I've been married for 27 years, by the way. Actually, in a few weeks, it'll be 27 years. But we have two daughters, 19 and 16 now. And Aberdeen is their hometown. And it is my hometown. And I like to tell people that Aberdeen, I've lived there for, we're going on 7 years now, but it's the longest I've lived anywhere since I moved out of my parents' house when I was 17. I've moved so much. But I want to ask a question. Do you remember where you were on the morning of January 6, 2021? Do you remember? Yeah. If you're old enough to understand what was going on, of course you remember. It's seared in our brain, just like 9/11 was seared in our brain. I was at home in my office in Aberdeen doing some research. And so I check in and see, like, oh, okay, there's this rally going on. Okay, whatever. Check in a little bit later. Oh, they're still doing the rally. Come back again, and okay, there's a march on the Capitol. Come back a little bit later. Oh, they're attacking the Capitol. People are going in. There's violence. There's chants to hang the vice president. And I had the same visceral reaction to that as I did to watching the attacks on 9/11, in the sense that our country was under attack. It was under attack, but this time I wasn't in a position to do anything about it, because I'm not in the group like I was when I was in the military that is going to go out and take care of business, take action, direct action against the threat. I'm not in the group. So I'm watching this unfold, just like we all did. And then I'm waiting. I'm military, so I'm trained to follow. All right, who we're going to rally around? Who's going to step up and say, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to respond. This is the action we're going to take. And I didn't see that from John Thune. He described the January 6th event as a very unfortunate display. So a little bit of undersalesmanship there. that was good. I'll give you that one. So a very unfortunate display. So we've got John Thune saying that it shouldn't have happened. All right, and he's right, it shouldn't have happened. But there also needs to be accountability. A big part of my job when I was in the Air Force was ensuring accountability and the rule of law. That's what a judge advocate does. Good order and discipline are the reason for our existence. And that is not taking place. So again, watching, waiting. And then finally, I decided, well, somebody's got to do something. I'm somebody. I'll do something. So you should all know, if you're not aware already, that I was a lifelong independent. Lifelong independent until last fall. And watching the Republican leadership choose the party, choose power over the best interests of the country, called into question what they are doing. It is clear to me that there are two teams. One team is pro-democracy, and one team is not. I had to be on the pro-democracy team. So I am a proud Democrat now. And I want to serve as a bulwark against the authoritarian anti-democratic forces that we see, that we're seeing far more of with the January 6th hearing committee results coming out. I didn't realize how severe it was. So the threat is far greater than I initially thought. But that is the primary reason I'm running. The secondary reason I'm running is because I remember a time when you could afford, as a working family, to, pay your bills and not really have to worry about health care. And that has slipped away. Over the last 40 years, trickle-down economics has robbed the working class, the middle class, of a quality of life that they just don't have anymore. So regular people are getting the shaft from the system. And we know why that is. It is because money has corrupted our politics. Money, and I taught state and local government at Northern when I worked there. So I used to teach, here's how the system is supposed to work, here's the theory. Here's how the system really works, based on what I understood it to mean. Now that I'm a candidate, I can tell you that the system is far more broken than I thought, unfortunately. But this is not a surprise. All Americans recognize our system isn't working like it's supposed to. Our democracy isn't functioning properly. So why do we need to fight so strongly for democracy? Because there's forces, well-funded forces, well-organized forces working against democracy. But democracy at its core gives the people power. Democracy is power for the people. And it is the only power that can stand up to the interests of big money, which is why we have big money fighting against democracy. Democracy is power. We know it. Our forefathers knew it. The Ukrainians know it. And look what they're doing. So what does, if our democracy was working properly, like it used to, what does it do for us? Well, when we have a functional democracy in which everybody gets to vote, and gets to have their vote objectively counted in a fair system, we get good jobs with decent wages. We get high quality of education that ensures a decent start in life. You get health care that doesn't force a choice between bankruptcy or death. Then when your working days are done, you get Medicare to keep you reasonably healthy and Social Security to ensure that you can enjoy at least a modest retirement and not work until you die. These things are on the line in this election. The GOP plan, recent GOP plan, calls for sunsetting Social Security and Medicare. Sunsetting, so it's fancy, but we all know what happens when the sun sets. It gets dark and things stop. So sunsetting Social Security and Medicare. John Thune himself in 2019 mentioned to a reporter that, hey, I hope if Trump was to be elected in a second term, we'd get to reform Social Security and Medicare. So the GOP plan is to sunset it. John Thune's on record for saying, well, we need to reform it. Mitch McConnell's calling it, well, it busts the budget. We shouldn't have to. Yeah, you're angry about Social Security and Medicare too. I'm with you. So we need to, again, focus on democracy. Democracy works, we get these things, and we get more. Because the people need certain things, as I said. So if I'm your next US Senator, what are we going to do? We are going to have affordable health care. I will be looking into improving the Affordable Care Act in any way possible. And I will go so far as to pledge that if the mystical Republican plan for health care ever comes out of the ether and shows itself, and it's actually a better deal for regular folks, I'll freely vote for it and say, hey, they did a good job. And if it ever shows up, great, credit to them. But it's been 10 years, so I suspect it might not show up. We need affordable drugs. We need affordable drugs. So the easiest way to do this, would be to do what the VA does and enable Medicare to negotiate drug prices directly with the drug makers. Now, do you think John Thune's going to support that? No. It could be due to the fact that he's taken, well, I think it was $500,000 from Big Pharma. So he's got a $16 million war chest. Where does that come from? Because I don't have that much. Where does that come from? It comes from the special interests. It comes from corporations. It comes from wealthy elites, the big money that we're talking about. He's taken money. He's taken money from the NRA. So there's a lot of entities that want him to deliver things. And he does. He prevents things that could impede the bottom line, the profits. My approach will always be people over profits. That is not what John Thune is going to do. We are paying over $4 a gallon for gas now. I'm driving around the state quite a bit, so I feel the pain there. And, you know, John Thune is complaining about it constantly. Can you believe this? You know, Joe Biden is making horrible, and, you know, they shut down the pipeline and all this other stuff. So he doesn't understand what's going on. And I'm as mad as he is, and as mad as you are, presumably, about the price of gas. But I'm looking at it from a different perspective in the sense that the big oil companies made $14 billion in profits, not over the last year, over the last quarter. So the beginning of this year, $14 billion in profits. They're making record profits. And I've been saying this to people that question me, well, what is the problem? Why don't they just drill more? That's not the answer, because that's not happening right now. In theory, it's a supply and demand line would be you drill more if there's more demand, and there's more demand because the price is high. But we're not getting that because record profits are to be made. So we need to address that. Corporate consolidation, big oil. Corporate consolidation, big meat. Ranchers. Any ranchers here? All right, not too many. Big meat. You should be aware of it as a consumer, but the ranchers are intrinsically aware of it. The packers are fixing prices. They control 80% of the market. They're fixing prices for the ranchers who do all the hard work and then nothing. They barely scrape by. In many cases, they cannot scrape by, and they go under and have to sell their land. Then on the back end, the producers, processors are charging us extra. So there's a lot of issues that need to be dealt with, and John Thune is not doing it. Now, I'd probably be remiss if I didn't talk about firearms. We have a situation in this country where you don't know if you're going to the store, if you're going to church, if your kid's going to school, whether they're going to come home. That's a realistic possibility now. And John Thune has said that we need AR-15s to shoot prairie dogs. An AR-15, standard AR-15, has a NATO 5.56 round. And we've had discussions with people like, oh, yeah, that's good, prairie dogs. The NATO 5.56 round, for those that don't know, that is a standard military round that you use in combat. Because it is high velocity, high muzzle energy, that will do a lot of damage into somebody that you're fighting. We don't need those for prairie dogs. I was encouraged to see the bipartisan bill recently passed, but it doesn't go far enough. Universal background checks. There are certain people that should not have a weapon. They should not have a weapon. And if I'm senator, certain people will not have a weapon because universal background checks will become standard. So there's a whole bunch of things to talk about, but I don't want to talk about a whole bunch of things because I do have limited time. So I will just wrap up to say that we can beat John Thune. We can beat John Thune. But it is not me that's going to beat John Thune. It is going to be you that beat John Thune, and your friends and your neighbors. So I'm going to invite you, if you haven't already, to come check out my website, bengsforsenate.com. And if you can, if you have social media, if you have Twitter, if you have Facebook, if you have Instagram, come find us on there and like the page and follow the page. And if you see things that you like, share it. Talk about it with your friends so we can get the message out. But I now